Hey everyone, it's Debbie here from emotionallysensitive.com, and I am just going to wait a couple of seconds or minutes to see if anyone's going to show up, because sometimes it takes a few seconds or minutes for people to see on their timeline when someone's gone live. So I'm just gonna check that out. Gonna bring up Facebook also on my computer so I can see if any questions come in, because sometimes that works a little bit better. Okay, all right, so we have a couple of people here. I am going to get started. Let me just turn down the volume here on my computer so you don't get that feedback. Okay, so it has been a while since I have made a video like this, but I have an experience that is bringing up a lot and may be very helpful for others who are going through anxiety, going through being triggered by intense emotions. So I'm just gonna put it out there, and hopefully it will be helpful to you or someone you love. And if you have any questions, you can pop them down in the comments below, or any comments if you want to share about your own experience and what you might relate to in this particular share. So, when we have a reactionary moment, when we have an intense emotion because something has happened in our lives in present day as adults, a lot of times what we don't realize that there is this energetic emotional charge that's connected to and related to things that happened in the past. Most of the time from our childhood, right? So traumatic things that happened when we were growing up, things that happened when we were a teenager, even into young adulthood, right? So I was kind of oblivious to this. I recently had an accident where so about a week ago I made a video for you guys that I'm biking every day. I'm doing like 8, 9, 10 miles. The very next day after that, I got some really bad news that someone had passed away from my past. And I went out on my bike ride, and I was distracted, and I fell, and it was not a good fall. It was like emergency room, CAT scan, big bump on my head. Now I have this, if you guys can see it, I tried to cover it with makeup, but it was really bad. Like, it turned into a really bad black eye. And so this is kind of twofold. So when we have a trauma, like getting into an accident or falling off of a bike, or anything like that. So we have two parts to the trauma, because now we have the physiological part, there's trauma to the body. And then if we have anything that's coming up for us emotionally that's connected to any part of what we experienced during that physical trauma, we have that emotional past component, right? So I'll tell you what I mean. I'll give you an example of exactly how it showed up for me so that it'll make more sense, hopefully, and be relatable. So, fell off my bike, scary, embarrassing. I jumped right up to just kind of be like, I'm okay, everything's fine, I'm all right. And people are like, stay down, don't get up, because when you get hurt like that, your adrenaline is rushing and you don't really know how hurt you are sometimes, because the adrenaline is making you move and you don't want to make things worse. So, 911 was called, ambulance, everything. And when they came, they're like, please be still. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was having the worst anxiety attack ever on top of it. It was just really panic city. So went to the emergency room, got the CAT scan, everything was fine. So I had this bump, bruise, blah, 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 surface stuff. But I was also really shaken emotionally. And it was really intense, right? Okay, so yes, I'm in recovery from BPD. I'm an emotionally sensitive person. I feel my emotions intensely. But this was like upper level, kind of like, oh my gosh, really intense emotional reaction, right? I didn't give it much thought, but it occurred to me, like I just had like a memory really briefly of when I was around 12 years old, and I fell off my bike, and I went to tell my mom, and I needed to go to the hospital, and she was drinking, and her boyfriend was drinking, and she kind of belittled the situation, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, I'm not taking you to the hospital, we're not leaving right now. And I remember how that felt in my body. So some of you may relate to having memories of times of whether it's abuse, neglect, just being dismissed, being invalidated. It doesn't even have to be like a big neglect thing like that or a big abuse thing. It could be just feeling invalidated, like, oh, you're all right, you're fine, and, so I remembered that, and I kind of like pushed it away. I was like, oh, I don't have time to deal with what happened when I was 12 years old. Like, I just need to like recover from what happened just now. So I didn't give it much thought. Well, the universe has some interesting ways of of being very generous with lessons if we're not getting them. And then I fell again. Way less of an issue. I just kind of like scrape myself and bruise myself a little bit, right? So, and I never have had things like that since I was 12, and I had 2 in like 1 week. And so I said, well, maybe I really need to deal with this, because there's this connection between what happened when I fell off the bike last week and the emotions that were stored in my body, stored in my psyche, stored in my being from what happened back then. And that stuff was kicked up. So I just want to give you guys permission to acknowledge that, you know, it doesn't have to be a bike fall. It could be a conversation. It could be the way someone says something to you. It can be something you see on television. It can be something that you overhear. It can be something that you observe at work or out in public, and it triggers you. And a lot of times we go, well, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't even understand how I could be so reactive and so emotional and so upset about this. You may or may not be able to identify it and trace it back to something that happened in the past, but we can trust that there is cause for why we get triggered today and why we have an intense emotional reaction, because it just doesn't come out spontaneously out of nowhere and with no cause and with no history. Something along the way, or maybe multiple things along the way, contribute to how and why we react the way we do when things happen today. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I haven't shared in a while, like I said, and that was kind of an aha moment for me. There's like, okay, I'm having a really intense emotional response to this. Why? Second thing I want to bring up about this is in my online class, we talk a lot about somatic issues. We talk about the nervous system, we talk about the brain, we talk about how emotions show up in our bodies, especially in emotion regulation. And one of the modalities that I have found really helpful, so definitely talk to your doctor before you do anything like this and just make sure you're cleared, because I did before I went and had it done. But there's this modality called TRE, which I believe stands for trauma release exercises, where you actually go into shaking, like have you ever like been in a yoga class or something else where they have you just start shaking out? There's actually there are studies and there's information out there on shaking out the discharging trauma from the nervous system through movement and through shaking out. And TRE is like a deliberate sitting down and doing that with someone who knows what they're doing, with a trained practitioner. So I actually let the person who I had studied this with before know about this, and she's like, "Yes, you totally need to, you totally need to do a TRE session to discharge some of the trauma from the bike fall." Now the second one too, because again, it's bringing up that muscle memory. This trauma. Okay, say nothing had ever happened on a bicycle before. It's still trauma emotionally and physically. When we go through something like that, something sudden, something jolting, something upsetting, something frightening, something that causes injury to the body. So if anyone's going through anything like this, I want to validate your experience. If you're having extra emotions or it feels more intense than usual, that's to allow yourself to have that. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you for feeling intensely. And then also the invitation is to consider, is this related to something unhealed from my past? Is the reason that I'm getting so upset right now because of something that happened in the past that I haven't fully healed? Can I talk to my therapist or a parent or my partner or my clergy member or someone else who I trust about what's coming up and deal with it? Like actually speak about it and heal through it. Otherwise, it's just going to keep coming up. Another example is for some of us when, and this is not a pretty topic, but for some of us when we get anxiety, our stomachs will get really upset. That's the body responding too. And you may remember other incidents in the past where you've had similar emotions and then you start to feel those same body sensations. And then those body sensations in and of themselves start to become a panic trigger. So you're like, oh my gosh, my stomach's gurgling. Oh my gosh, my heart's racing. And then we go straight into panic. So a recommendation that I've learned about this is to observe your body. So if you start to feel those types of symptoms coming on, instead of going, oh my God, I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm having a panic attack. Because what happens when we do that, right? Your nervous system reacts and responds and says, danger, 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 and you totally do go into an anxiety or panic attack. So what I have found really helpful, and it sounds so simple, but it does work when I apply it. And you have to have willingness. You have to really work at this, because when you're feeling that way, hi Nick, when you're feeling that way, there's a stubbornness that just comes over us sometimes because we're freaking out and we don't really want to sit still and try to do some type of mindfulness practice or healing practice. It's like, seriously? But if we do, it can be very calming, send new messages to our nervous system, have us feeling calmer, have us feeling more at ease, and then emotionally we start to feel better. Physically we start to feel more at ease as well. So the suggestion that was given to me that I've been practicing is that, and when you start to notice the body sensations, don't give them a name, just describe the body sensations. So instead of going, my heart's racing, my throat is feeling like this, my stomach, I'm having an anxiety attack, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. Okay, new scenario is this. My throat feels a little tight. I'm noticing that my heart is beating quickly. I'm noticing that my stomach is churning. That's it, and then we stop. We don't go into creating that we are having anxiety, panic, etc. So I don't know. I hope that was helpful to you guys in some way, shape, or form. I'm so appreciative that you took a little bit of time on your Saturday to be with me. I was just having a conversation with a loved one about having a lot of anxiety in response to the bike fall and really getting in touch with what the source of that was. Yes, it's traumatic in and of itself, but there was something else going on beneath. So this whole thing, for anyone who's joining late, has been about an invitation to acknowledge what's going on for us, both on the surface and beneath, and loving ourselves through that and allowing ourselves to have the intense emotions that come up and not being wrong for them, not criticizing ourselves, not going into self-judgment, remembering that it's okay. So we'll be talking about a whole lot more of this in our emotion regulation online course at emotionallysensitive.com that starts on Monday. The registration closes tomorrow on Sunday. I know a lot of you will be joining me, and I'm super excited about that. One of my passions is talking about the nervous system and talking about these different modalities that we can do to work on the somatic aspects, what's going on in our bodies in response to what we're feeling emotionally. So we do bring a lot of that in. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.